If you thought that spiritual awakening would bring clear answers, and what he found was confusion, fatigue, and a strange silence inside, breathe. This does not mean that something has gone wrong. It means that something old is rearranging. When consciousness expands, the mind loses the maps it used to understand the world, and for a while, everything seems out of place. Sensations become more intense. Thoughts run over each other. And what used to make sense, it no longer explains anything. If this has ever happened to you, stay with me, because now we will understand why it happens. But this confusion is not a mistake. It is the beginning of a profound process of adaptation. And today, I want to show you why this happens, and how to get through this moment more calmly, clearly, and presence. Have you ever noticed that the more you seek spiritual clarity, the more confused you become? Sounds crazy, right? We grow up hearing that spiritual awakening will bring peace, enlightenment, answers to everything. But the reality is quite different. The truth that no one tells you is this: the awakening of consciousness does not begin with light. It begins with chaos. It starts with you questioning everything you've ever believed, losing the ground that seems so solid, feeling more lost than ever. And do you know what the most disturbing part is? That's exactly what should be happening. Spiritual confusion is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is proof that you are finally doing something right. While everyone else is looking for ready-made answers and comfortable certainties, you had the courage to dive into the unknown, to dismantle illusions, to exchange false security for uncomfortable truth. And that, my friend, changes everything. In this video, we'll unravel why expanding consciousness makes you more confused at first, why this confusion is absolutely necessary, and most importantly, how to navigate it without losing your sanity. If you're feeling lost in the middle of your awakening process, if people around you don't understand you anymore, if you question whether you're going crazy or evolving, this video is for you. Let's talk about the collapse of certainties, the loneliness of the path, the practical symptoms of this inner transformation, and the signs that even if confused, you are exactly where you need to be. Get ready to have insights that will validate your experience and give you practical tools to go through this phase with more awareness and less despair. If you are experiencing this spiritual confusion right now, comment here on number 11 so I know that you are not alone in this journey. Let's go together. You know that moment when everything seemed to make sense and suddenly you find yourself questioning absolutely everything. Well, many people believe that spiritual awakening brings immediate clarity, a light at the end of the tunnel that illuminates the entire path. But the truth is quite different. When consciousness begins to truly expand, the first gift it brings is tremendous confusion. It's as if you've lived your whole life using a map, and out of nowhere, someone shows you that the map is upside down. The awakening sensation of consciousness is not accompanied by ready-made answers, but rather by questions that you didn't even know existed. And here's the paradox that no one tells you. The more you awaken, the more lost you may feel at first. That person who was once sure about religion, purpose, and identity now finds himself floating in a sea of doubt. It's not a sign that you're doing something wrong, quite the opposite. This spiritual confusion is the first hint that something genuine is going on inside you. When you stop accepting automatic answers and start questioning the structures that supported your reality, the ground really shakes. It's uncomfortable, it's scary, but it's also the beginning of an inner transformation that will reconnect you with who you really are. The awakening process is not like watching a movie where everything is resolved in the end. It's more like taking apart a giant puzzle to find that the pieces you had didn't form the image they sold you. Your emotional sensitivity increases. You notice things that previously went unnoticed, and suddenly nothing seems solid as before. The people around you go about their lives as normal, as long as you feel that you are living in a parallel dimension. And this is not because you are going crazy, but because your perception is changing in a profound way. So if you're feeling more confused than ever, take a deep breath. You're exactly where you need to be. We grow up believing that evolution is a straight line. You study, learn, improve, and that's it. When it comes to spiritual awakening, many people expect the same. I'm going to meditate, I'm going to read some books, I'm going to have some revelations, and in the blink of an eye, I'll be enlightened. But the expansion of consciousness does not work like that. It is not an online course with a certificate at the end. It's more like renovating an old house while you're still living in it. You have to tear down walls, tear out old floors, brave dust and chaos before you see any beauty emerge. And in the middle of all this mess, you wonder if it wasn't better to have left everything as it was. Think with me. When you decide to transform your life inside, it's not just about adding new things on top of what already exists. You need to dismantle beliefs that have sustained you for years, question truths that seemed absolute, and strip yourself of identities that you thought were you. It is a process of deep deconstruction before reconstruction. There are people who hope to wake up one day more aware, lighter, more connected. But what happens first is exactly the opposite. You feel heavier, more confused, more disconnected from everything. This is not a failure in the system, it is the system working. Deep self-knowledge requires you to look at shadows that you would rather ignore. Have you ever noticed how, when you start questioning a belief, it seems to strengthen before it disappears? It's the ego resisting, it's the old structure struggling to survive. During the phases of spiritual awakening, you will oscillate between moments of absolute clarity and moments of utter confusion. One day you feel like you've understood everything. The next, you seem like you don't know anything else. This non-linearity is frightening because we have been conditioned to seek constant progress, measurable results, comfortable certainties. But what if true growth lies precisely in learning to dance with uncertainty? What if confusion is the fertile soil where the seeds of your new consciousness are germinating? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you believed to be absolute truth was just one version of the truth, one interpretation among thousands possible. This is exactly what happens when spiritual crisis knocks on your door. That religion that has brought you comfort all your life suddenly seems limited, full of contradictions that you had never noticed. The identity you have so carefully constructed, I am this, I believe in that, I belong to this group, begins to crack like an old vase. And the worst thing is that the new truths have not yet arrived. You are in that anguished limbo between who you were and who you are becoming. It's like changing the lenses of your glasses while you're still seeing with the old ones. Everything is blurred, distorted, confusing. I know people who have experienced this in very different ways. There are those who have abandoned the church they attended for decades because the ready-made answers no longer made sense. There are those who have left their successful career because they realized that they were living someone else's dream, not their own. There are those who have ended relationships because they woke up to toxic dynamics that they used to completely normalize. This collapse of certainties is not smooth. It does not come with an instruction manual. You simply realize that you can no longer pretend. You can no longer accept what you once accepted without question. The change in perception is so radical that sometimes you look in the mirror and don't recognize who is there staring back at you. The hardest thing about all of this is that no one prepared you for this phase. Society teaches us to seek stability, security, definitive answers. But the awakening of consciousness does just the opposite. It takes the ground under your feet to teach you how to fly. Meanwhile, you feel yourself falling. Your rational mind desperately wants to cling to something solid, but it all feels like sand dripping through your fingers. People around you offer advice based on the old world you're leaving behind, and it only adds to the sense of displacement. You no longer fit into superficial conversations. You no longer get excited about the same things. You no longer vibrate at the same frequencies. And while the old crumbles, the new is still just a distant promise, a vague hunch that there is something more authentic waiting for you. And then comes the part that no one likes to talk about: loneliness. That deep, half-existential loneliness that has nothing to do with being physically alone, but with the feeling that no one else understands you. Your friends keep talking about the same old things: soccer, gossip, complaining about work, and you just can't get into that energy anymore. It's not that you think you're better than anyone else, far from it. It's just that their emotional sensitivity has increased so much that these conversations seem like scratches on the soul. You try to share what you're feeling, the awakening process you're going through, and people look at you as if you've grown a second head. The family then does not even say, "Are you okay? Don't want to talk to someone?" And that someone always means a therapist or psychiatrist. This is what I call the spiritual wilderness, that arid period where you walk alone because you just can't find company that resonates with what you're experiencing. You go to a barbecue and feel like an ET, participate in work meetings and seem to be watching a theater of the absurd. You can no longer feign genuine interest in the same trivialities. You can no longer laugh at the same jokes. You can no longer vibrate with achievements that once cheered you up. And the craziest thing, you also don't fit into the superficial spiritual groups, in those environments full of cliches and toxic positivity. You are literally halfway, not belonging anywhere. It is a voluntary exile that hurts like few others. But here is the secret that few realize. It is precisely in this desert that the true inner transformation takes place. When you no longer have the social distractions, when you can no longer lean on external validation, when you have no other option but to dive deep into yourself, that's when the magic happens. You stop looking for answers outside and start finding a different kind of wisdom within you. Spiritual integration does not happen in the midst of noise and constant company. It requires silence, solitude, deep introspection. Of course it hurts, of course it scares, but it is in this apparent absence of everything that you finally find the presence of something much greater. And while you still feel lonely at times, you're starting to realize that there's a huge difference between being alone and feeling complete in your own company. Now let's talk about the practical signs, those things that happen in your daily life and that make you think, am I going crazy? First, insomnia. You lie in bed and instead of sleeping, your mind races in a marathon of existential questions. What is the meaning of all this? Who am I really? Where am I going? And there goes 3 in the morning with you with your eyes open, feeling your nervous system on high alert. Along with that come the disturbing synchronicities. You think of a person and they call you. You dream about something and it happens the next day. You see numbers repeated all the time: 1111, 2222, 3333. Before you would call it a coincidence, but now it is so frequent that it seems that the universe is trying to tell you something that you still don't know how to decipher. Existential crises get so intense that you question absolutely everything. Why do I work in this job? Does this relationship make sense? Is this city really where I want to be? Do these clothes reflect who I am? It may seem silly, but when you are in full expansion of consciousness, even the brand of laundry detergent you buy becomes a reason for deep reflection. You develop an obsessive need to understand, to find meaning in every detail of life. She spends hours researching conscious spirituality, reads dozens of books, watches videos, talks to people who have been through it. It's an unquenchable thirst for answers that, ironically, only adds to the confusion at first. and you have that disturbing feeling of losing control of your own mind. You find yourself crying out of nowhere, laughing alone, feeling intense emotions that you can't explain. Your emotional sensitivity is so high that a TV commercial can make you cry. A song can transport you to other dimensions. A look from a stranger on the street can seem to carry cosmic messages. People around you think you're depressed or having a flare-up, but you know it's something different. It's as if all the layers of protection you've built up throughout your life are dissolving, leaving you raw, exposed, hypersensitive to everything and everyone. And deep down, even if you are scared, you intuit that this is part of something bigger that is happening. Here's the turning point that can change everything for you. Confusion isn't a bug in the system. It's the system itself working perfectly. Think with me, you spent years, maybe decades, building an identity, a way of seeing the world, automatic patterns of thought and behavior. All of this was being programmed into his nervous system as if it was software running in the background. Now, for spiritual awakening to really happen, this software needs to be updated, but you can't update it without first uninstalling the old version. It's just like formatting a computer. For a while it's unusable, chaotic. It seems like everything has been lost. But it is precisely this temporary void that allows the installation of something much more powerful and aligned with who you really are. Spiritual confusion has a specific and fundamental function. It dissolves the ego. You know that voice in your head that thinks you know everything, that you control everything, that you need to have an answer for everything? Well, it needs to be silenced so that something deeper can emerge. As long as you're comfortable in your certainties, the ego reigns supreme. It loves certainties, it loves control, it loves predictability. But when confusion creeps in, the ego panics because it can no longer exert its dominance. And it is precisely in this moment of panic, in this forced surrender, that a greater intelligence begins to take over. You stop trying to control everything with the rational mind and start trusting something more intuitive, wiser, more connected with the real essence of life. In addition, confusion breaks the automatic patterns that kept you stuck. Before, you always reacted the same way, always thought the same way, always chose the same way. It was safe, but it was a prison disguised as comfort. When the awakening process throws you into confusion, those patterns just don't work anymore. You are forced to question, to experiment, to open yourself to possibilities that once seemed absurd. Is it uncomfortable? A lot. Is it scary? Absolutely. But it is also liberating in a way that only those who go through it can understand. Confusion makes room, mental, emotional, spiritual space, for the new to enter. Without this temporary chaos, you would keep repeating the same cycles forever, thinking that you are evolving when in fact you are just spinning in circles. So, yes, mess is necessary, disorder is purposeful, chaos is sacred. Okay, but what now? What do you do when you're immersed in all this mess and it looks like you're going to sink? The first thing, and perhaps the most difficult, is allow yourself not to know. That's right. Give yourself the radical permission to not have ready-made answers, to not understand everything, to simply be in uncertainty without despair. Our conditioning has taught us that not knowing is weakness, but on the path of deep self-knowledge, admitting I don't know is the first step to real wisdom. When you stop forcing answers, when you relax into this non-wisdom, something curious happens. The answers start coming naturally, at the right time, in the right way. Not by the mind that calculates, but by an intuition that simply knows without having to explain. Second essential movement. Anchor yourself in the body, not just in the mind. The expansion of consciousness can take you to very abstract, very mental places, and you need roots in the concrete so you don't get completely lost. Simple practices work miracles. Barefoot walks on the grass, mindful breathing exercises, slow stretches paying attention to each muscle. When you feel the firm ground beneath your feet, when you take a deep breath and feel the air filling your lungs, when you move your body and feel life pulsating there, you remember that you are not just a mind floating in space. You are flesh, bone, blood, material energy. There are people who start to cook more, plant, work with their hands, precisely to maintain this contact with the physical while the spiritual is in turmoil. Also, consider starting a spiritual journal. Write down your insights, your doubts, your strange dreams, the synchronicities that happen. It doesn't have to make sense now, but in a few months you'll reread and notice patterns. You'll see how the pieces were fitting together even when it seemed like total chaos. Also, reduce external stimuli, less social networks, less sensationalist news, fewer opinions from others entering your head. You need silence to hear your own inner voice. And nature, my friend, nature heals. It's not New Age talk, it's physiology. The nervous system and spirituality are deeply connected, and nature regulates this system in a way that no therapy can. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, have radical patience with yourself. Spiritual integration does not happen in days or weeks. It happens in layers, in cycles, at the exact pace that your soul needs. Even in the midst of all this confusion, there are subtle signs that indicate that you're exactly where you need to be. The first of these is an internal sense that something is changing, even if you can't put into words what. It's like feeling the earth moving beneath your feet, imperceptible to the outside eye, but unmistakable to those who are living. You wake up a few days with a strange lightness, a momentary clarity that disappears soon after, but that leaves a taste of, there's something going on here. These small openings, these glimpses of light in the midst of the mist, are signs that the inner transformation is underway, working in the deepest layers of your being. Another powerful sign, you just can't fake it anymore. Before, maybe you smiled in situations that bothered you, agreed to things that violated your values, maintained relationships for convenience. Now, it's as if there were an internal lie detector that is impossible to circumvent. When something is not aligned with your truth, your body reacts. You feel a tightness in your chest, a malaise, a physical impossibility to continue performing. This is not neurosis. It is authenticity emerging. Your heightened emotional sensitivity isn't weakness, it's you finally feeling life for real, without the filters and anesthesia you used before. And yes, it bothers the people around you, but it bothers you even more trying to go back to being who you are no longer. And there are those moments of absolute clarity that come out of nowhere. You may be doing the dishes, driving, taking a shower, and suddenly, bam, a deep understanding about something that had been plaguing you for months. It does not come from the rational mind. It comes from a deeper, wiser place. It is these insights that confirm that you are not losing your mind, you are actually gaining access to dimensions of consciousness that were previously blocked. The phases of spiritual awakening are not linear, but each one leaves its marks, its learnings, its expansions. So if you are confused, but at the same time feel like you can't go back, if the old life feels like a movie you watched but no longer want to rewatch, breathe a sigh of relief. You are on the right path, even if the path seems like a labyrinth with no apparent way out. So, at the end of the day, spiritual confusion isn't the sign that you've taken the wrong path. It's the confirmation that you've finally found the true path. While everyone else is running after manufactured certainties, ready-made answers that are useless, you had the courage to stop, question, dismantle everything, and allow yourself not to know. This is no small feat. In fact, it is revolutionary in a society that sells fake security as if it were the most precious asset. The awakening of consciousness never promised to be comfortable, never promised to be quick, never promised to be easy. He only promised to be real, authentic, transformative, in a way that changes not only you, but the way you relate to everything and everyone. The journey you are living is lonely at times, chaotic at others, but it is also the richest and most meaningful experience a human being can have. You are literally being reborn while you are still alive, shedding your skin as the world keeps turning. And yes, there will be days when you want to give up, go back to autopilot, pretend that none of this happened. But something inside you has already changed irreversibly. You have seen beyond the curtains. You have felt beyond the masks. You have touched a truth that no longer fits in the old boxes. Conscious spirituality is not a destination with a fixed date. It is a way of living where every day is an opportunity to know oneself more deeply. Trust the process. Trust especially when it doesn't make any sense, when you feel completely lost, when you think you've taken a step back. Confusion is the dark womb where the new version of you is being gestated. And every pregnancy has its time, its rhythm, its hidden wisdom. You're not alone in this, even when it feels like you are. Thousands of souls are passing through or have already passed through this same portal, through this same necessary deconstruction. Confusion is not the end of the road. It is the real beginning. And you, brave enough to be here, have already proven that you have everything you need to get through this storm and emerge more whole, more alive, more you than you have ever been. And then, after everything we've talked about here, an honest question. Will you continue to run away from the confusion, or will you finally embrace it as an essential part of your inner transformation? Because look, you can spend your whole life looking for shortcuts, magic formulas, gurus who promise instant enlightenment, or you can accept that true spiritual awakening is messy, it's uncomfortable, but it's also the most real and liberating thing you'll ever experience. So stop for a second and ask yourself, what are you willing to let go of to become who you really are? What certainties do you need to let go? What old version of you is asking to die? Apply what you learned here. Start today. Allow yourself not to know. Anchor yourself in the body. Reduce external stimuli. Connect with nature. Have radical patience with yourself. Spiritual integration happens when you stop fighting the process and start flowing with it. And remember, every moment of confusion is actually a moment of consciousness expansion in disguise. You're not losing your mind, you're gaining access to dimensions of your being that have always been there, waiting to be discovered. The emotional sensitivity you feel isn't weakness, it's you finally feeling life for real. Now tell me, what was the strongest insight you had watching this video? What resonated most with what you're experiencing right now? Share it here in the comments, because your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to hear to feel less alone on this journey. And if you want to continue diving deep into these topics, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next content on conscious spirituality, deep self-knowledge, and expansion of consciousness. See you in the next video, and until then, trust in the chaos. He knows exactly what he's doing to you.